Hi, welcome to volume 55 of Ask a Brit. I hope you're having a fantastic Thanksgiving week, as I am. I don't know why I'm speaking like that. I also said I ham. So I'm thinking about the meat that we're having. It's turkey, so it makes no sense that I should do that. This very Ask a Brit episode is dedicated to, of course, Thanksgiving, and I've been putting out that topic to my social media profiles plus Patreon throughout the last 2 weeks to get your questions, and I'm going to be answering some of them today. So let's get on with it. Traditions. Well, of course, Thanksgiving itself is a tradition, and I've got quite a few questions lined up here from you fine people around some of the traditions that I've noted over the years. And one of those questions, this comes on Instagram from Redlands Redhead, and Redlands Redhead asks, do you like to watch American football games and the Macy's parade? No to the first one. I've never really sat down to learn the rules. I did, I think, cover this in a video I did a few years ago about sports, about American sports. NFL just hasn't really ever fallen into my radar in that sense, although I do occasionally give my commentary on the Super Bowl on Twitter, and hilarity ensues when I say things like, he was never offside, and crap like that nobody understands over here. But in terms of Macy's Parade, it really depends on what I did the night before as to whether I get up in time to watch it. But I occasionally do. It's obviously full of showbiz and that Al Roker guy, is that his name? Out on the streets going hi. And it's all good fun. It's harmless. It's just I'm usually hungover, so it's difficult for me to enjoy it. I'm sure I will this year, and all will be good. And on a similar kind of note here, Jeff Lichtman, who asks on Patreon, and by the way, if you become a patron of ours on Patreon, you get to ask your questions 1 week before everyone else. And Jeff was the beneficiary of that rule that I've instated just recently. And Jeff asks, on the Macy's Parade theme, or on the theme of the Macy's Parade, which are your favourite balloons and floats in the Macy's Thanksgiving Parade? Well, you've got to love Santa, haven't you? But, I think, I don't know, I look out for Spider-Man, is always fun. I look out for the awkward ones, the ones that you can't tell what they are. They might be a bit embarrassing at times. I remember one year there was one that looked kind of like a rude vegetable. Don't know if it was. Maybe it was something rude, and I just didn't see it. But I think that's largely it. I always think of, actually, speaking of Spider-Man, I always think of the film Spider-Man, in which they're at the Macy's Parade, right? Or something like that, with all these floats. It's in New York City, anyway. I always want the Green Goblin to turn. It'd be bad if that actually happened. On Facebook, Brian Lauer, or is it Lower? Don't know. But Brian asks, if you returned to live in the UK, what American traditions would you take with you and carry on? And similarly, my mother-in-law, Beverly, asks on Facebook, what Thanksgiving tradition is your personal favourite, regardless of where you are? And I would have to say, and I think I'm rather making a meal of this, it's a pun, you'll see in a second, over the last few weeks, but I would say that the consumption of pecan pie, is it pecan, is it pecan, is it pecan? We've been there a million times. You don't need to answer that in the comments. You can if you want. I think it is the consumption of that because, well, firstly, I'd never had it in the UK. I'd really, honestly, never had it until about 3 years ago when I sat down to eat it for the first time. And with each passing year, it gets more marvellous. Stay tuned because we are going to get on to a few more questions about food here later in the video. But for now, we're going to get on to another batch of questions. Okay, Cha-Cha-Tuna, which is Twitter name of the week, because this question comes from Twitter, and Cha-Cha-Tuna asks, what does Thanksgiving mean to you? Which is a great question. It means a whole host of things. I think from year to year, the things for which I'm thankful change. I think I'm thankful for my health, but more importantly, that of my one surviving cat, who a year ago was actually in bad shape himself. Very glad he's still around. I think it means food. Thanksgiving means food to me. As I say that, my wife's baking me a cake because it's my birthday. It was my birthday. It's my birthday as I film, and as this video has now gone out on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, my birthday's now in the past. but she is making me a cake, and it's really nice. And also on Twitter, Jamie Parton, I'd like to hear about what your first Thanksgiving was like. I remember it very well, because obviously I was incredibly new to the country. I'd moved here just days before, and we actually spent Thanksgiving on campus at Butler University with Tara's sister and a bunch of her friends, and they made me a load of food. Of course, because we were on campus, there was drink involved, so a lot of what happened that night I don't remember, but I do remember that. And of course that wasn't what Thanksgiving would be ultimately for me. I mean, after that time I never went to a campus again for Thanksgiving, so that was a different experience altogether. And since then, it's just been spent with, other family in sort of traditional housing settings. But it was interesting, new to the country, so everyone was asking me questions, all of these students asking me questions. And I think, it gave me this impression that that's how life was going to be from now on. And I wasn't far wrong. I have spent most of my life in America answering questions from Americans about my British life. Similar question, this comes from JW Davis 2000 on Instagram. And they ask, what did you first think about Thanksgiving when you moved to the US? Do you feel the same way now? So similar to what I just said, really, to Jamie's question, is that, it of course gave me a false impression of what Thanksgiving would later be to me. It was more friend-based, it was more drink-based, and as I'll point out here, in response to Art of the DJ, who asks, can you name any sort of strange things you've experienced on Thanksgiving? That very first Thanksgiving, this one student who was heavily drunk offered me some weed. So I was new to the country, and I was, trying to put on a good impression so that I could get my visa and all of that. So I said no. I would have said no anyway, Mum. Don't worry. And that was that. So that's possibly the weirdest thing that I can think of. One weird thing is that there's water dripping right now. I don't think anyone's having a piss. Oh, she's doing dishes during the video. We're short on time, so that's just something that's got to happen, unfortunately. But yeah, being offered weed on Thanksgiving definitely hasn't happened since. And it hadn't happened before in my life by a stranger. That's not true. I did walk down Camden many a times in London. Can you remember that, when we were offered crack by people just brazenly in front of the police? Very interesting times. And also on Twitter, Heather Basley. Do you and Tara have any Thanksgiving traditions? Do you have any Harvest Day foods? I think that's specifically in reference to the UK Harvest Day that we serve at Thanksgiving. I don't know, really. We tend to stick to a lot of the American traditions, which makes sense, and I'm more than happy to do that. I think there's been the odd, sometimes very odd occasion in which I would quaff or consume Cadbury's mini eggs at this time of year, just because Christmas is coming up, so it might be that they are served alongside the turkey. It's a weird family that we live in, and it's just what happens. Yes. I've done it. Melts the chocolate. It's weird.
So when he says weird family,
he means me, and that's that. So nothing really, I don't think. Maybe there's been the occasion, perhaps, when we've tried to, get some British food from overseas, but nothing really stands out. Maybe we should. Maybe I should start incorporating that and try to get it to spread around and become a kind of Thanksgiving tradition. But speaking of food, that brings us very nicely onto our next section, which is all about food. What's that?
Icing.
Can I lick it?
Have it.
That's really gross, but I'll do it. That's it. Oh, I got it on my. I think I got it on my beard. It's bad, isn't it? It's a good job I've got a brown beard and you can't notice. Donna the Time Lord asks the first question about food. This is on Twitter. I can't do this video like this. It's horrible. Donna, which, again, great name. Donna asks, do you think turkey... Can you get me a paper towel? Do you think turkey and all the trimmings were actually served at the first Thanksgiving? It doesn't appear so. I think the tradition of doing that came after. It looks like, from what I've researched, that they served fowl of some kind and venison, possibly ham. This is according to letters from the time, from reports. Lobster, clams, berries, fruit, pumpkin, and squash. And that turkey came later. There are rumours, thank you. Oh, that is disgusting. There are rumours that they were hunting for turkey before that very feast, actually, and that might have given rise to giving rise is a cooking term, so that's kind of a pun. Might have given rise to the whole turkey thing. I didn't get the whole thing, did I?
Look better.
It's better. Okay, but they don't really know, do they? But it is interesting because I remember reading about this a few years ago, not the history there, but the fact that turkey isn't all that people eat at Thanksgiving. And people will eat things like beef and ham, depending on where you live, and it tends to be quite a regional thing. And on Facebook, Rachella Rivers asks, what should a vegetarian eat on Thanksgiving? Now, I can answer that, Rachella, from experience, because the last 2 Thanksgivings that I had, I was a vegetarian for, and on those occasions, one thing that I had that I could highly recommend was something called a celebration roast. Kind of looked like a ham, but tasted like a sort of a combination of meats and stuffing. It was a nice combo, I would say, and so very glad to have it. I would recommend that. Have it with some nice vegetables. Get yourself a glass of wine if you're that way inclined, and Bob's your uncle, you'll be happy. Bob's your uncle. There you go, British slang. Throw that in there. Lucy Pask, I know Lucy. She lives here in Chicago, and Lucy asks on Facebook again, marshmallows on potatoes, revelation or revolting? I'm tempted to say revolting, right? I line up to get all my food. I start stacking the mashed potatoes on and all of that and the turkey, and then I get to that thing that's been laid out, maybe this year, maybe for the first time, and perhaps even post it to Instagram. So then you'll get my reaction. If it's good, then I'll show you it's good. If it's bad, I'll throw up on the camera. All right, and Matthew Hickey from Facebook and Heather Michaela from Instagram both ask about the kinds of Thanksgiving foods that I dislike. And I would have to say it's pumpkin pie. I talked about this a lot recently, and to be fair to pumpkin pie, it's not just pumpkin pie that I dislike, it's pumpkin in general, all right? It doesn't taste very good. Can't speak when I think about pumpkin pie. Makes me sick. That's harsh. I mean, I recognise that pumpkins look great and they make me think of fall and all that. I just can't bear the taste. Don't know why that is. So I would definitely have to put pumpkin pie in there. Matthew also asks, my favourite Thanksgiving food. I think I might have mentioned this before, but it's pecan pie. Okay, on to our final batch of questions. Just thinking about food. Yes, Britain. We got an oddly high number of questions on Instagram about British perceptions of Thanksgiving, and one of those, or I should say 2 of those, in fact, came from Links77 and my friend and former colleague Dino, who sort of both ask, do Brits celebrate Thanksgiving? And Dino makes the distinction that they celebrate Thanksgiving, of course, in Canada. And I think the answer to that question is we don't sort of go out of our way as a people to celebrate it, but we do have a Harvest Festival, which is where we give all of the tins and the vegetables and the food and all that to the needy, the people that need it more than we do, and all of that. But it's sort of it's a little different from what you would know as Thanksgiving, and also it's not as widely celebrated by any means. I think people might celebrate the American Thanksgiving if, for example, they have an American roommate and they want to put on that kind of holiday. I remember when Tara and I first met, we went to Wigan, of all places, my one and only visit to Wigan, and had a sort of Thanksgiving meal with the British lady that she'd been staying with at the time. Even if she did make a sort of alternate version of pumpkin pie, it was nice nonetheless. And that actually technically was my introduction to Thanksgiving. But it was in England, so I guess it doesn't count. Stephanie Kratzel on Instagram asks, what do Brits think of it in general? Just an excuse for fat Americans to stuff more food in their faces? That's Stephanie's words, not mine. No, I don't think so. I don't think Brits have a wide perception of what Thanksgiving is, to be honest. I can speak to my own viewpoint. I think that back in the day, watching Planes, Trains and Automobiles, I assumed it was just an extension of Christmas, or that it was built into the Christmas celebration in many ways. I mean, it's got that sort of family aspect to it. You eat lots of food. It was barely distinguishable in many ways until I moved here, and then everything changed. So I don't think we really have too many thoughts on it in that regard, and it's certainly not as divisive as the spelling of colour and the use of soccer, for example. For some reason, we care more about perceived misuse of words than we do of these traditions. And the final question today comes from Melody in California, and Melody asks on Instagram, do Brits really hate sweet potatoes and pumpkin pie? I love pumpkin pie. So I've already covered that, haven't I? But in terms of sweet potatoes, again, they're another orange vegetable about which I was very skeptical at first. In fact, it took me about 6, 7, maybe 8 years of living here. I was in Chicago, actually, when this happened, of actually deciding, no, I quite like sweet potato.
I call your sweet potato love a win.
You've won me over, yeah. Tara convinced me to like sweet potatoes because she herself is sweet and not a potato.
Well, that's good.
That I nearly went there just as a joke. Just as a joke. It's for humour purposes. Thank you for watching this episode of Ask a Brit. Don't forget to hit my stupid little face to subscribe, and please share this video with the world. Hit me up on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook, and if you'd like to support this channel, please do so at patreon.com/lostinthepond.